Nintendo's dev cycles are hitting some extreme numbers nowadays, and we knew this was coming. Even Nintendo came out themselves right after the Switch 2 released and stated that there was going to be longer dev times now, and they were finding ways to combat this, and we knew ways would be releasing ports, remakes, remasters, maybe even Switch 2 editions like we've seen them doing, and other types of spin-offs while we wait for the mainline games. Now, as this sounds like a great idea, and honestly it's something that they have been doing for years, that's why we get Mario Party games and sports games and so many games from HAL Labs. I mean, shoot, they don't have a problem with it. They release a new game every year. But so far with the Switch 2, it feels like everything is just due. Like every series is coming up and we still haven't heard a word about certain franchises, a lot of these franchises, and something really just caught my attention today that made me want to talk about this even more. But we just got a recent development interview for the creators of Tomodachi Life, and it took about 9 years for this game to come to fruition. Takahashi states, "I believe development started around 2017 after things had settled down on Miitomo. The producers, Sakamoto-san, and I have a special attachment to Tomodachi Life, and have been playing the previous games on Nintendo 3DS for many years, but we'd already squeezed all we could out of the game." And Sakamoto-san said, "Me too, sadly. There's so much that I want my Mii characters to experience, but there's nothing more that I can do for them." He laughs and states, "So we talked about our desire to create a new Tomodachi Life game." This is something that's making me scratch my head. It's taking near a decade for something like Tomodachi Life to come out, and not really for any reason besides the fact that the devs were just squeezing everything they could out of Miitomo, which is just kind of strange to me. They knew fans really wanted a new Tomodachi Life really badly, and they decided to just wait and just absolutely milk the crap out of Miitomo before moving on to Tomodachi Life again, which I feel like is something they could have been simultaneously working on, and Tomodachi Life could have came out a lot sooner. However, this is the same development team that worked on Rhythm Heaven, and we obviously have a new Rhythm Heaven game coming out as well. Now, they've also worked on things in the past like WarioWare or Metroid Samus Returns, but it makes me wonder why work on two separate WarioWare games for the Switch 1 where something like Rhythm Heaven could have came first. I mean, it's kind of strange that we're getting two Switch 1 games, both made by the same internal Nintendo team, already pushing year 2 of Switch 2, their brand new console. Now, if this was just a Rhythm Heaven or Tomodachi Life thing, I would completely get it. But this is something that we're seeing across various different franchises from Nintendo, whether it be their internal developers or external ones. We're seeing it, and it's happening more and more. I mean, a lot of these franchises are appearing to be 7 to 8 years since their last game, and we haven't even heard of what their next game is going to be yet. This October will mark 7 years since Next Level Games' Luigi's Mansion 3 on Nintendo Switch in 2019. Now, they also worked on Mario Strikers Battle League in 2022, but that game was just god-awful. I mean, it was lacking content, it had almost nothing at launch, and it was just a bland, boring experience that felt like an overpriced sports game. It's honestly probably one of my least favorite Mario sports games of all time. And yes, it's pretty rare for a studio to only be working on one franchise. Normally, they're tasked with multiple to make games for, and of course, Mario Strikers was one that Nintendo wanted them to bring back. But man, at the cost of still waiting for another Luigi's Mansion game, it makes me kind of think, was it worth it? Like, even if Mario Strikers Battle League was really good like the GameCube and Wii version, I'd much rather have a quicker response time for the next Luigi's Mansion game than playing a sport game. Like, I'm sorry, I just much rather play the next mainline Luigi's Mansion than another Mario Strikers. And if something like a Strikers is going to push the development of a Luigi's Mansion game back, I feel like it might be better to have a separate part of Next Level Games' team work on this game, or have another outsourced company work on the Strikers games instead of Next Level Games' main core group, because they need to focus on Luigi's Mansion, and maybe they will now, since Luigi's Mansion is still a fresh franchise and 3 did probably so much better than Nintendo ever thought it would. Maybe they're now going to start moving forward to prioritizing something like Mansion first. I mean, do you remember the reveal for Luigi's Mansion 3? It was like some sort of casual Luigi walks through a door and they showed like 4 little clips of Luigi walking through a hallway and then title screen. It wasn't even like a full reveal trailer. It was almost like Nintendo wasn't confident enough in this being a major franchise quite yet, which I understand. You only got a game on the GameCube and a 3DS, so this being the third game was a kind of big risk for them, and obviously it really worked out. So hopefully in the future we can start seeing more games a little bit more often for this franchise. Let's look at 2D Mario. New Super Mario Bros. U came out on the Wii U in 2012, and we didn't see another 2D Mario until 2019, where it was literally just the exact same game brought to the Switch. It took them 7 years to finally bring 2D Mario back, but in the same exact way. And we know development meant for Super Mario Wonder didn't start development until after that, which would take another 4 years for Mario Wonder. Now, 2D Mario is made by Nintendo EPD Group 10, and they are responsible for things like Pikmin 3, 2D Mario, even the Mario Maker games, so they definitely have had their hands full, and I feel like this is part of the problem. Why is the 2D Mario team, the team that works on not only classic 2D Mario games, new 2D Mario games, and yes, even Mario Maker, working on Pikmin as well? Now, Pikmin 1 and 2 was previously made by Nintendo EAD, and this is one of their main teams, and it kind of branched off to Team 10. So yes, they're still making groups, and that's another thing. Nintendo will probably continue to grow and have bigger teams and more teams in order to take on some of these franchises separately. But yeah, that's probably also why it took us so long to go from Pikmin 3 to Pikmin 4. Remember at the end of the Wii U and the beginning of the Switch, Nintendo kept telling us how close and almost finished Pikmin 4 was, and it never came until 2023. It took them 10 years to give us Pikmin 4, and I really loved Pikmin 4. I don't think it's better than Pikmin 2 still, but still, it didn't feel like it was something too ambitious where it should have took 10 years of development time. But like I said, with the same team working on things like 2D Mario and even Mario Maker, their hands are full, and it almost feels like they're being overworked with way too many projects. I mean, that means we're going to wait a very long time for the next Pikmin, or the next Mario Maker, or maybe even the next 2D Mario, especially since the team is probably the ones that's been working on all this DLC in the Switch 2 edition of Mario Wonder. We're also now getting into unprecedented times for something like Smash Brothers. This December will mark 8 years since the last Smash, and like I've stated already, these games aren't even announced yet. So no, Nintendo's not going to come out this summer and say a new Smash Brothers is coming for the holiday. I just don't think that's the case. You know, Sakurai really likes to hype up these games. Maybe I'm wrong, but I just don't see that being the case. So odds are it's going to be 9 or 10 years, maybe even more, until this game actually comes out. And I say maybe even more because Sakurai was working on a brand new Kirby Air Ride game. Now, of course, Sakurai probably had tons of help from his own team, Sora Limited and Bandai Namco, and even HAL themselves, but this was probably a big challenge and a big chunk of time for him to spend on this game. And we know Sakurai likes to perfect his craft, so are we still going to be 3 to 4 years away until we even see the next Smash Brothers game? And I could keep going with other franchises we haven't even seen or heard from, like Star Fox, but yeah, of course, I gotta talk about 3D Mario. Of course, what type of video would this be for me if I didn't? Of course, we're seeing unprecedented times until the next 3D Mario game. We are now pushing 9 years because according to rumors from Nate the Hate, we are probably not gonna get the game until next year, which will be a decade since the last 3D Mario game. And of course, I already know what you're going to say. The same team that worked on 3D Mario also worked on things like Bowser's Fury and, of course, Donkey Kong Bonanza. But there's something that's just so incredibly bittersweet about this. I'm glad that the Mario team is the primary developers of Donkey Kong, and especially a 3D Donkey Kong right now. That means that's the best possible team to make 3D Donkey Kong the best possible game it could be. I'm so happy for the franchise and hope it continues to grow in that positive direction. But at the same time, if it does take away from the development of a new 3D Mario game, that's when I start to get a little hesitant, because as much as I love Donkey Kong Bonanza and as much as it does have a lot of Mario Odyssey DNA, it is not a Mario game. It's barely even a platformer. It's more of a beat 'em up, digging through the ground, messing with the terrain type of game, where it's not really built on jumping from platform to platform on a pre-established world that you can't interact with. Now, maybe this is just me and my line of thinking. I can completely understand that if that's the case, but I'd much rather have never gotten Bowser's Fury and waited for Donkey Kong Bonanza to get 3D Mario as like a launch title for Switch 2 a lot sooner, and then get Donkey Kong Bonanza maybe 2 to 3 years later. Bowser's Fury was awesome, but I don't think it's something that we necessarily needed if it meant that we had to wait even longer for the next 3D Mario game. It's only like a 2 to 3 hour experience after all. And you know what? I'll give them the credit. Maybe it's still early and we haven't seen these teams developed yet, but rumor has it that the Mario Odyssey team did split, where half of the Odyssey team just moved on to be the 3D Donkey Kong team, and the other half of the Odyssey team grew to be a bigger new 3D Mario team, which very well could be what's happening, which now could mean we get better cycles between both games. For instance, in a perfect world, having around a 7 to 8 year gap in between games would probably be perfect. perfect, so that way you can have a new 3D Donkey Kong, and then 3 to 4 years later, you can have a new 3D Mario, and then 3 to 4 years later, a new 3D Donkey Kong, and back and forth, and I feel like that would fill those gaps perfectly. One of the only teams that's primarily focused on one game is the Zelda team. It's pretty much all they do is just the mainline Zelda games. And it's probably why we never wait more than around 6 years for a new mainline Zelda game, which seems to be a pretty consistent time gap. But right now, we all know that the last Zelda game was Tears of the Kingdom that came out in 2023. It's only been 3 years, so we're still probably around halfway through development, which means we still have another 3 to maybe 4 years until this next game, which is fine. I don't think fans really care that much, and with rumors of a brand new Ocarina of Time remake coming this year, I think fans are going to be more than happy to wait. But to give you guys a better look at what I'm talking about, here's all the franchises right now that are due for a new game, or what I would call franchise over 5 to 6 years. Look at how many of these franchises from Nintendo has not had a game in over 7 years. And none of these franchises shown on screen right now even has a game announced. The only thing we have rumors about is a 3D Mario game coming at the beginning of next year, which will be pushing 9 years. And then apparently a new Star Fox game is coming this summer, which would finally close that 10-year gap. So yeah, besides just franchises that are coming up on their due dates or past them now, being 7 to 8 years since their last games, you also have franchises that hasn't even been touched in multiple years, 10 to 20 years for some of them. It's been clear so far that Nintendo thinks the solution to these long gaps is to have Switch 2 editions or ports, DLC, remakes, or remasters. In my opinion, that just makes the gaps even longer, because clearly doing these DLCs or doing these Switch 2 editions just pretty much pushes the next game back because the development team is too busy working on those Switch 2 editions. For instance, I don't think we're going to see the next 2D Mario game, or maybe even Mario Maker of that matter, for another 3 to 4 years, all because of the Switch 2 edition of Super Mario Wonder. I think there's two big solutions here. One is pretty obvious, just hire more people and build more internal teams, which I do believe Nintendo is probably currently doing. They're always hiring and they're always building more groups and teams, which I do think is something that we could be seeing soon. But another solution is not relying so much on these remakes and remasters and Switch 2 editions of games that came out just a couple of years ago, but instead focusing on spinning development on some of these older franchises. Have a new dedicated team work on a Star Fox game, or pull from somebody like Ubisoft, who's worked on multiple Nintendo projects in the past. In fact, they've even collabed with Starlink Battle for Atlas with the Star Fox characters, and a lot of people say it's the best Star Fox game they've ever played. We have other companies like Bandai Namco helping Sakurai with the Smash Brothers games and even things in the past like Mario Baseball, and we've even had Square Enix work on some past games like Mario Hoops 3-on-3 and even Mario Sports Mix. And of course, Ubisoft already worked on the amazing Mario Rabbids with Nintendo, so maybe have them also work on Star Fox, or have Sora Limited and Bandai Namco also work on a brand new Kid Icarus game. Even though these gaps would still continue because of more projects and multiple projects being worked on by these teams, I'd rather have those multiple projects actually being something we care about, like a franchise coming back after so many years instead of just a third Hyrule Warriors game or a terrible Mario Strikers Battle League. I also want to start seeing the fruits of the labors of these games. If it actually is going to take 9 to 10 years for a new game in a franchise, then it needs to feel like it was worth that 9 to 10 years. Now, obviously it didn't take 13 years for Mario Wonder to be in development, but it did take about 13 years for us to get a new 2D Mario game. And it was a really good 2D Mario game, but do I feel like it should have took that long? No, it's a 2D cartoony Mario game. I don't know what would have took 13 years for them to finally decide to make a new one, and after that long wait, yeah, it feels like they were missing a lot of content. Like, boss battles were completely stripped down to bare minimum Bowser Jr. fights, which would later get some awesome boss fights with the Bowser Jr. fights, but that wouldn't come until a Switch 2 edition, which should have been there from the start. Or making us wait almost 11 years for a new Mario Kart game. Yes, the team was working on Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, and then the DLC packs for that game, which was honestly just made to give them more time on Mario Kart World. They even admitted it. And they, yes, worked on Mario Kart Tour as well, but then finally to get a Mario Kart game that strips what made Mario Kart for all these years and really divided the fan base, that 11-year wait almost felt like a waste for a lot of us. The finished product felt like a game that could have came out years ago. And like I've said in the past, I've really enjoyed Pikmin 4, but I just felt like it was more of a retread of what they did with Pikmin 2, which is great, but it didn't feel like that should have took 10 years of development time to finally give us Pikmin 4. And I know development times aren't always the times that it takes for a new game to come out. It could have started development a lot later, but still, Us fans have had to wait 10 years for a new Pikmin experience, even though they gave us Pikmin 3 Deluxe. And honestly, with a 10-year gap, I really expected something a little bit more ambitious. It was still a great game, but it still was not worth that 10 years. This felt like a game that could have easily came 5 or 6 years after Pikmin 3. In fact, there's a current rumor right now from Nate the Hate, which is probably going to happen. He's an extremely reliable source that says we're about to get a Pikmin 4 Switch 2 edition, which probably means we're not seeing Pikmin 5 for another 4 to 5 years, which is just frustrating. So my point is, it's awesome to get new games in a franchise we haven't seen in a while, like 3D Donkey Kong. I mean, it never should have taken this long to give us a 3D Donkey Kong in the first place, but it sucks when it comes at the expense of waiting for something else that team is known for, like the next 3D Mario game. So I'm hoping Nintendo's investing in more groups and developers to work on these IPs, and that way they can get a lot more games out from a lot more variety of franchises at a lot faster rate, because waiting 7 to 8 years for a new game every single time is going to get extremely frustrating, especially when these new games don't look like they require 7 to 8 years of development. Of course, I'm no developer and I don't know what goes into these games. A lot can go into them for sure, but I think 10 years for a new Tomodachi Life sounds kind of ridiculous. But what do you think about this? Do you not mind the long development times, or are you fine waiting a long time for some of your series? I mean, there are a lot of games to play outside from Nintendo alone, so that could give you a reason to hang on a little bit longer. But like I said, just let me know what you think down below, and make sure you leave a like and subscribe before you head out, and I hope you all have a blessed day. See ya, guys.